Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Investing Talk podcast. Some stocks just have that extra spark, and today we're looking at one that's been absolutely on fire. Recursion Pharmaceuticals, ticker symbol RXRX.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch.
It's up nearly 30% in the past month, and on Valentine's Day alone, it closed at $9.65, a jump of over 13%.
What's really got me interested is the sheer volume of trading.
Oh yeah,
We're talking over 54 million shares compared to an average of 17 million.
wow.
That tells me there's some serious interest here, and not just from casual investors.
That's right, RXRX is technically a biotech company, but it's attracting attention like a tech giant.
Right.
What is driving this frenzy?
Well, their secret weapon is artificial intelligence. They've developed this incredible platform called Recursion OS that analyzes massive amounts of biological data. Think of it as like a superpowered research team working around the clock to identify potential new drug candidates.
So like having a digital brain sifting through mountains of information to find those hidden gems, those potential cures. That's incredible.
It is, and what really solidifies their position in the AI space is NVIDIA's involvement. NVIDIA, the leader in all things AI, well, they recently sold off shares in other AI companies, but they KEPT their significant stake in Recursion Pharmaceuticals.
Wow.
That's a major vote of confidence from a company that truly understands the potential of AI.
That's a huge endorsement. But what about tangible results? What are they actually working on that has got investors so buzzing?
Well, their lead drug candidate, REC-994, is showing real promise in treating cerebral cavernous malformation. It's a rare brain disease with limited treatment options. They presented some very encouraging phase 2 data at the International Stroke Conference, and that sent ripples through the medical community.
Wow, a potential breakthrough for a rare disease that's got to be encouraging for patients and investors alike. But I imagine they have a whole pipeline of potential treatments in the works, right?
Absolutely, they're not a one-trick pony. RXRX has a very robust pipeline with 7 clinical readouts expected in the next 18 months. We're talking potential treatments for advanced cancers, deficient infection, and more. This is a company focused on execution and real progress, not just riding the hype wave.
So this isn't just a flash in the pan, is it? This sounds like a company that's positioned for long-term success.
Exactly. They're riding several powerful waves: the bending AI trend, the urgent need for new treatments in these challenging disease areas, and their own impressive track record of execution. That's a winning combination.
And the technical indicators seem to be reflecting this positive momentum. You mentioned the impressive trading volume earlier, but what other signs are you seeing?
Well, for one, they're trading above both the 50-day and 200-day moving averages, which is a really bullish signal. The stock crossed above the 200-day moving average back on February 7th, suggesting a potential shift toward a longer-term upward trend.
Okay, so things are looking very promising, but let's be realistic. Every investment has its risks. What are some potential downsides or red flags investors should be aware of with RXRX?
You are absolutely right. No investment is without risk. Remember, we've seen some big jumps in the stock price, and big jumps can sometimes lead to big dips. Volatility is inherent in the biotech sector, especially with a company like RXRX that's experiencing such rapid growth.
So volatility is definitely something to keep in mind. Are there any other specific concerns investors should be aware of?
Well, keep in mind that a large part of their pipeline is still in the early stages of development. Early-stage biotech always carries inherent risk. There's always a chance that clinical trials might not deliver the hoped-for results.
So early-stage biotech inherent risk. What else?
The Relative Strength Index, or RSI, is nearing what we call overbought territory. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean things are going south, but it is a signal worth watching closely. It suggests that the recent rally might be getting a little ahead of itself.
That's a great point. It sounds like RXRX is one to watch closely, massive potential, but definitely some risk involved. Let's unpack those potential risks a little further after a quick word from our sponsors. All right, we're back and ready to dig a little deeper into the potential risks and rewards of investing in Recursion Pharmaceuticals, ticker symbol RXRX. Before the break, we were talking about the inherent volatility of biotech stocks and the fact that a lot of RXRX's pipeline is still in those early stages.
Right, and it's important to understand the factors that could cause that stock price to fluctuate. On the positive side, successful clinical trial results are always a major catalyst. If those upcoming readouts, and remember there are 7 expected in the next 18 months, if those show overwhelmingly positive data, well, the stock could see another significant surge.
That makes sense. Positive clinical data is essentially gold in the biotech world. But what about partnerships or collaborations? Those seem to be pretty important in this industry as well. Could those be a potential driver of growth for RXRX?
Absolutely. Remember how much weight NVIDIA's continued investment carried? Partnerships with other big players in the pharmaceutical or tech world could be game changers. It would not only signal further validation of their platform and technology, but also potentially open up new avenues for research and development.
So partnerships, positive clinical trial results, those are some of the things to watch for on the upside. Now let's flip the coin and talk about the potential downsides. What are some red flags or warning signs that investors should be aware of?
Well, the flip side of those exciting clinical trials is that negative news could send the stock in the opposite direction. If a drug candidate fails to meet its endpoints or shows unexpected side effects, investors tend to react quickly, and not in a good way.
Yeah, that's the high-stakes nature of biotech, isn't it? High risk, high reward.
Exactly, but it's not just about the clinical trials themselves. There's also the whole regulatory landscape to consider. Getting new drugs approved by the FDA is a notoriously long and complex process, and there are no guarantees.
Right? Regulatory delays or rejections are definitely something to keep in mind. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a potential breakthrough, but the regulatory process can be a real roadblock. What about competition? Is RXRX the only player in this AI-driven drug discovery space?
They're definitely a leader, but they're not alone. There are other companies out there leveraging AI and machine learning to develop new therapies. The field is getting increasingly competitive, so investors should keep an eye on the progress of other companies in the space.
So competition is a factor. And of course, we can't forget about the overall market sentiment toward AI and biotech. Those broader market trends can have a ripple effect on even the most promising individual stocks.
Absolutely. RXRX doesn't operate in a vacuum. If investor sentiment sours on those sectors for any reason, RXRX could get caught in the downdraft even if their fundamentals remain strong.
That's a crucial point for investors to remember. It's all interconnected. Okay, so we covered a lot of ground here. Technical indicators, potential risk and rewards, competitive landscape, even the broader market trends. But I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, Recursion Pharmaceuticals' unique approach to drug discovery.
Their Recursion OS platform is really what sets them apart. It's a complete departure from the traditional trial and error approach, which can be incredibly time-consuming and expensive. By using AI to analyze vast amounts of data, they're able to identify promising drug candidates much more efficiently.
It's like they're using technology to leapfrog over those traditional hurdles, right? Streamlining drug development and potentially bringing treatments to patients faster.
Exactly, and that's why so many investors are excited about RX. They're not just developing new goals, they're revolutionizing the process itself.
It's that combination of innovation, ambition, and a real drive to make a difference that makes them so compelling. But of course, I know you're going to remind our listeners to do their own research before making any investment decisions, right?
Absolutely. Don't just take our word for it or rely on what you hear on podcasts. Dig into the company's financial reports, study their clinical trial data, and make sure you understand the risks involved.
Right. Informed investors are smart investors. But for our listeners who are already familiar with biotech investing and are intrigued by RXRX, what are some resources they can use to really dive deep into the company and learn more?
The company's own website and investor relations materials are always a good starting point. They usually have a lot of detailed information about their platform, their pipeline, and their financials. And of course, there are a lot of reputable financial websites and publications that provide in-depth analysis of RXRX and other companies in the biotech sector.
Fantastic. And don't forget those SEC filings, analyst reports, and industry publications. There's a wealth of information out there, so take the time to do your due diligence. But beyond the numbers and the technical analysis, what excites you most about Recursion Pharmaceuticals? What truly makes them stand out in your mind?
You know, it's their bold vision that truly captivates me. They're not just aiming to develop a few successful drugs, they're looking to fundamentally transform the drug discovery process, using the power of AI to make it faster, more efficient, and ultimately more successful for patients. It's that ambition, that drive to make a real difference that really sets them apart.
I love that. It's that bigger picture, that potential to change the world that's truly inspiring. All right, before we wrap up, let's take a look at our listener mailbag and see what questions our listeners have about RXRX. We love hearing from you, our listeners, so keep those emails and voice memos coming.
And please don't forget to subscribe to the Investing Talk podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a rating. It really helps other investors like yourselves discover the show.
Absolutely. Spread the word and tell your friends, family, and colleagues about the show, especially if they're interested in learning about companies like Recursion Pharmaceuticals. And if there are other companies you'd like us to cover, let us know.
We're always looking for new ideas, and we appreciate your feedback. Now on to our first question. This one comes from Sarah in San Francisco. He writes, I'm a long-term investor, and I'm always looking for companies that are tackling big problems and have the potential to change the world. Recursion. Pharmaceuticals definitely seems to fit the bill, but I'm still a bit hesitant to invest in biotech. It seems so risky. What would you say to someone like me who's interested, but also cautious?
That's a great question, Sarah, and one we hear a lot. Biotech can be a volatile sector, that's for sure. But it also offers the potential for enormous rewards, both financially and in terms of the positive impact these companies can have on human health.
I agree. Recursion Pharmaceuticals is a perfect example of that. They're using cutting-edge technology to develop potential treatments for some really challenging diseases. But as we've discussed, investing in any early-stage biotech company carries inherent risks. Clinical trials can fail, regulatory hurdles can pop up, and competition is always a factor.
So for a cautious investor like Sarah, I think diversification is key. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say. Consider Recursion Pharmaceuticals as part of a well-balanced portfolio that includes investments in different sectors and asset classes.
That's excellent advice. It's also crucial to manage your expectations. Don't expect to get rich quickly with any biotech investment, even one as promising as Recursion Pharmaceuticals. Patience is key. If you believe in the company's long-term vision and you're comfortable with the level of risk, then a small investment could be a worthwhile addition to your portfolio.
But as always, do your research, consult with a financial advisor if needed, and never invest more than you can afford to lose. All right, we have time for one more question. This one comes from Michael in Chicago. He asks, what are your thoughts on Recursion Pharmaceuticals valuation? Is the stock overpriced at its current level, or is there still room for growth?
The million-dollar question. Valuation is always a tricky topic, especially with a high-growth company like this. There's no simple answer as it depends on a lot of factors. The company's future earnings, potential overall market conditions, and investor sentiment all play a role.
And right now, Recursion Pharmaceuticals is trading at a premium compared to some other companies in the biotech sector. That's partly due to all the buzz around their AI platform and all the recent positive news. But it's crucial to remember that they're still pre-revenues. They haven't actually brought a drug to market yet.
So their valuation is largely based on expectations for the future, and those expectations are pretty high right now. If they can meet or exceed those expectations, the current stock price might be justified. But if they stumble well, the stock could pull back.
It's a classic high-risk, high-reward scenario. Investors who truly believe in their long-term vision and can handle the volatility might be comfortable with the current valuation. But for more risk-averse investors, it might be wise to wait and see if there's a pullback before jumping in.
That's a prudent approach. Ultimately, every investor needs to make their own decisions based on their individual circumstances and risk tolerance.
Well said. And with that, we've come to the end of another episode of the Investing Talk podcast. We hope you enjoyed this in-depth look at Recursion Pharmaceuticals and the exciting world of AI-driven drug discovery.
Remember, we're just two investors sharing our perspective. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to the Investing Talk podcast, share this episode with anyone who might be interested, and leave a comment with your thoughts on Recursion Pharmaceuticals or other companies you'd like us to cover. Until next time, happy investing.